Hey, welcome back. It is Jennifer Lee, afternoons on KOMA. My favorite time of Friday because it's an awesome 80s weekend. We have Noble McIntyre of McIntyre Law in to talk about many things, including the 80s.
Yep.
That was Sammy Hagar, I Can't Drive, 55, just for you.
Because it's a 55, because you know I'm 55 years old, right?
Yes,
so that was an old person joke? I don't look 55. I don't look a day over 54.
No.
And so I'm crushing it.
54 and a half.
54 and a half. Perfect. Yeah. But I remember that song when I was a kid, and now here I am. I know it's not about age, but 55, and I'm 55. It's a little hurtful.
It is
way to hurt me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. You know I'm a heart patient, right?
Yes,
yeah,
I know
and
that.
You stab me in the heart?
Have to be careful. Speaking of driving, in the 80s, it was such a rite of passage to get your driver's license as soon as you could. Some people took off from school and got their driver's license and came back, I have my license. But now it's a little different. Kids aren't in a hurry, it doesn't seem like.
In fact, when I was a kid, not only did I get my license the day I could, I got my permit the day I could, the license the day I could. I was driving at 13 on my grandparents' farm and had been driving for a number of years. I got a CDL license so that I could drive semis because I would help on the farm and we would drive the semis into town to dump the grain. And then when I was in college, I went on wheat harvest and I would drive the semis. So I had a CDL license. Kids today, not all of them. Obviously, some still want that independence, but some are so used to mom and dad driving around, so used to Uber, they have no real drive to go get that independence and that license. And so you'll talk to I'll have a client come in that's 18, 19 years old that was injured as a passenger. It doesn't even have a driver's license. Wow. I'm like, what are you doing? But yeah, kids today just have a completely different mindset. It's a different world than it was for us. There was no push of a button and an Uber came and got us. You walked, rode your bike, your skateboard, or with a friend, or you drove a car. Yeah, and I remember the first one of my friends to get a license was born in October before me in January. So she had the car and the license, and we all piled in and cruised on a Friday and Saturday night in the town of Chickasha on 4th Street. Now that I'm a parent, okay, we did that too. As a parent, that's a nightmare. You're putting a bunch of teenage kids in with an inexperienced teenage driver that has a bunch of distractions in your car. Only bad things can happen. They don't know what they're doing, and all these kids are piled into a car. But back then, that's what we did too.
With those guys in trucks that would drive with like the windows down like this to where you could barely see who it was.
Now, what was your first car?
My first car, and I'm a little embarrassed, but it was a Dodge Aries K.
What does an Aries K look like?
It's a very square car.
Like a Dodge Dart? Those old Dodge Darts?
Not as bad as a Dodge Dart. It was a fleet car, I think. And so my parents got it like at a bargain. And so that was what my first car was. It was blue.
Mine was a 1947 wheelish Jeep from World War II that my dad had purchased at an auction, and he had taken the four-cylinder engine out and put in an all-aluminum V6 that he took out of an Oldsmobile from a scrapyard. And it was a stick shift. So I learned to drive a stick shift on a 1947 Jeep. And it was a lot of fun. I have some videos of me driving around high school in that thing. It leaked like crazy when it rained if the roof was on, so I just had the roof off most of the time.
I bet it got, 2.1 miles per gallon?
Yes,
probably.
But gas was what, 59 cents a gallon?
Yeah, that's true.
I think the cheapest I remember getting gas when I was in high school was probably, I don't know if it ever went 50 cents a gallon, but it was 59 cents a gallon for a long time.
Wow. Now it's $700 a gallon.
And cars are $100,000.
Right.
Yes.
Right. In the 80s, they didn't have the real ID like they do now.
No.
And we're coming up on compliance. In fact, yesterday was supposed to be the day, but I think they extended it maybe a little bit. But let's talk about this real ID thing, because I know there's a lot of confusion whether you have to have it or you can have a regular driver's license or whatnot.
Well, you can still have a regular driver's license, but you're going to be restricted in things you can do. You can no longer fly. They've extended the deadline out a number of times. They're not going to extend it anymore past this year. And I think it was supposed to be May 7th. I may have given you a couple more months.
Right.
But you're not going to be able to fly absent having a real ID or a passport. Okay, and not everybody has a passport. So that's going to be an issue. The other thing is, it's not just about travel. When you go into a federal building, if I go down to the federal courthouse, if I'm called as a juror, if I'm an attorney, you have to show your ID. A regular ID is not going to get you in. You're going to have a real ID, compliant ID to get into any federal buildings as well. So it's not just travel. It's also access to different things. Then in states like Oklahoma, in which you're required to show an identification to vote, not all states are that way. In fact, you can just pretty much align it across the country. If you live in a predominantly red state, a Republican state, you have to show an ID to vote. vote. If you live in a predominantly blue state, you don't have to show an ID to vote. That's pretty much across the board with a few limited exceptions. Eventually, with this administration, he wants IDs in every state, and we'll see if all the states follow. But in Oklahoma, you're going to need either a passport or a real ID to vote now. And so that makes it harder for old people because old people aren't traveling on airplanes anymore. They're not really going into a lot of federal buildings. You sit there and think about my 81-year-old mom. She's got to go through the process to get a real ID to go vote. And she can do it because mom and dad are still mobile and get around in a car. But there's some older folks that just aren't that mobile. They're living in assisted living centers. They're going to sacrifice that right unless they can go get a real ID.
And my mom is 81 too. They were born the same year, apparently.
There you go.
Yeah, and she's not going to get a real ID. Now, I guess you can, if you bring your birth certificate and your regular driver's license, then you can vote.
But with the real ID now, unlike in the past where you could say, okay, I'm married, your last name's different on your birth certificate. Now, if your last name is different because you've gotten married, it's a whole different problem for you because they're not going to let you until you get the real ID. And so it's not enough to bring your regular ID and your birth certificate if the names don't match up.
So I would just get a passport, even if you don't travel.
It's much easier. It's not that hard to go get a real ID. It's just that it takes so long. I mean, they don't have enough tag agencies doing it. You'll go stand in line in the old days, if you need an ID or you lost your ID, you could go into any tag agency and get it pretty quick. Now you have to arrange for a time to go in. Everybody else is doing it too. It's this big rush. Eventually that'll even out, but right now it's still a challenge.
It's kind of scary. So ladies, what if they have a hyphen in their name?
My daughter did that recently.
Yeah.
I don't know that I understand that because when I was a kid, I get it for all the women. My daughter's a very strong-minded young woman. I love her to death. She hyphenated her last name. Yeah. I told her husband, Blaine, who I like a lot, said I wouldn't have been okay with that in my day because I'm proud of my name. I wanted my wife to be proud of my name. But it's a different time and a different era. But that makes it even more complicated, I think, on the ID side. And
she's a strong McIntyre. So
she is. She wanted to keep. My youngest daughter says the only way she's getting married is if she meets somebody that we're not related to whose last name is also McIntyre because she wants to keep the McIntyre name. I'm like, you're limiting your options, but okay.
She'll have to go to Scotland or Ireland
to find somebody.
to find the McIntyre.
There you go.
All right. Thank you for clearing that up. A lot of people were confused about the real ID, so hopefully this helped. Noble McIntyre, McIntyre Law, as always. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.